it's annoying.
Okay, guys.
All right, we're live.
Hey, all right. Sounds good.
We're on a kind of a scaled down version of a live conversation. This time we're talking about our 5 favorite albums from 1998.
Yes.
I'm going to start it off, and Mark
Okay.
will chime in. My first selection is Into the Electric Castle.
Ah,
For the longest time, I thought I keep on getting this mixed up with Electric Circus, and it was just so funny. But I originally got this like in the early 2000s because I bought off of eBay, and I don't have it anymore. But it was called Aeronauts Only,
yeah, yep.
And once I heard that, I was like, oh, this guy sounds pretty cool, cool music, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I got this, and it's like, this is like a perfect blend of rock opera, progressive metal, and progressive rock. I mean, and it's great. It's a pretty cool story. I mean, this would really translate really well onto film.
Right.
And I believe I did see someone try to do some animation on it, which I can't find it anymore. It's really cool. It was almost like a slideshow type of animation, but still, I think this would really translate to it. You know, I think if Arjun would do something like that, I think it'd just bring this up to you know, because now this is 25 years. You know, you could do it with maybe by the 30th anniversary of this album. You know, it would be pretty cool.
Yeah.
It's like a plethora of guests on there. You know,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like anywhere, mostly from the hard rock and metal worlds. There's some, you know, there's some progressive metal guys on there too. But it's like I have to say, out of all of their albums, this is the one I enjoy the most, and I go back to many times.
Right.
I mean, it's just, I think it has like almost like a timeless quality to it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's my first choice.
Okay, that's on my list as well. And let me see, just out of reach here, if I can get this one prop I have for this. Give me 4 seconds. Hang on. No, it's in the basement, so I'm not going to get it right now. But I have that on my list as well. And of course, I have this numbering system when I rate songs 1 through 5, and 5. If there's a 5 on there, that means it's a song I consider flying across an ocean to see. And Into Electric Castle has that in a few songs: The Castle Hall, Valley of the Queens, Time Beyond Time, Isis and Osiris, Amazing Flight,
Right.
all these great things, Across the Rainbow Bridge. And of course, it was done at the 25th anniversary in Tilburg. And Raina and I both went to see it, and they did the full blown the sets and stuff. They did 4 or 5 shows there in Tilburg, and I believe that's the one. Maybe it was Delancey doing the voiceovers for that. I think he was. So they got Delancey, Q from Star Trek, right, to do the voiceovers for that, who he wanted back then and couldn't get until
Right.
later on. And so therefore, one of my favorite albums of all time, I found out about, like you, in 2000s. And there you go, Into Electric Castle. I see you have the Blu-ray.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I have the earbook. I thought I was going to pull that out, but I didn't have it. So I just love the it's perfect. I was in a bowling tournament in Tennessee. I was back in the early 2000s. I was bowling professionally, and a guy was talking about Spock's beard. Somebody knew I like Spock's beard and told me, "Hey, Marty over there is talking about Spock's beard and other bands that you maybe never heard of." And so he told me about that one and another one we're going to have on this list too. So love that album.
Oh yeah, yeah. That it just. I mean, every song it's like I can't pick a favorite because the way it flows together, it just it's to me it's almost like one long song.
Yeah.
Broken up over 2 CDs.
Right. And I don't know if Ariane's been able to match it, to tell you the truth. I've liked his work, but it's probably my favorite album of his.
Yeah. I think the one that is like my second favorite is the Universal Migrator set that they put out together. But the other stuff is good too. But it's just those 2 are just like I think the pinnacle of his work personally.
Yeah, I think most people agree, and that's why they were done live first.
Right.
So okay. You want to go for number 2?
All right. Okay. My number 2 is Eloy Ocean 2.
Right. Nice.
I've been a fan of theirs since about the mid '90s when I started getting into progressive rock. Like right after '93, I got when I went to see the Prog Fest in Los Angeles, and I was overhearing everybody talking about different bands, and then they told me to go to this one record store called Round Sounds in Redondo Beach, and I said, this guy has just about everything you're going to need. So I went over there, and he was playing Eloy Ocean, and I was hooked ever since. I got that. I bought all the stuff. I mean, I'm up to his current album, which is really great. Okay. Basically a continuation of Ocean.
Right.
But it, obviously it's slightly different sound, a little more modern sounding, but it's just the one drawback I have, and it's so minor a band, is the accent in his voice.
Yeah.
But it's so minor that I kind of just put that to the back of my mind, and I just focus on the music more. And if you could do that, if you can get past his vocals, it's a great band. And this is a really good one that you haven't heard this one yet.
Right. Our station manager at progrock.com that's like his favorite band, I would say. At least when we started working together at the station. It may have changed since then, but of course they're outstanding band. When they play festivals, they headline them, and that album is one of the reasons why, for sure. So for my second album, in no particular order, is Shadow Gallery Tyranny, another band that I said once I heard this album, I was willing to fly over an ocean to see, and I had to do such a thing because I missed the show in New Jersey area or somewhere on the East Coast because I had a conflict, and so the next show was in London, and I said, "Well, Raina, we're going we're going to the Peel at the Kingston upon Thames, which is no longer there, and we saw the band, and we had just a great time." By that time, Mike Baker was already passed, and Brian Ashland was leading the band, but it was a great show, and very weird venue at the time. A music venue by day, strip club by night type of scenario. And it was a lot of fun hanging out with them there, and then I got to see him again at Rozfest. But that is like one of my favorite albums. I got that album the same day I got Ariane's Into Electric Castle. He gave me the guy at the bowling alley gave me 3 albums in when we were out in Middle America. It was Into Electric Castle, Tyranny, and Threshold's Hypothetical. I remember that day. It was very important to me because it's kind of it's prog metal. Maybe it's not like way up there in the metal, right? It's prog metal like 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 Led Zeppelin or Def Leppard type of kind of bubblegum. It's not like the Zool. It's not like like people might call metal nowadays, not extreme extreme technical metal. It was just melodic, and at the time I knew Porcupine Tree and Signify, and so this was just as good in my opinion as Shadow Gallery Tyranny, a band that I thought was good enough to fly over an ocean to see. And I think that people should listen to every one of their albums. I think it's great up and down, Tyranny being my favorite. So.
Yeah, I've heard some of their music. I believe they have, to YouTube is where I've heard a lot of it.
Yeah.
And I've been meaning to get their stuff, and it's like just it seems like other things kind of like come right in the way of that, So I'm definitely going to get that.
Yeah, definitely worth a check because the guys are great. So.
Yeah, well, for me with prog metal, I like the more melodic stuff.
Yeah,
I'm not the technical stuff. Once in a while, it's kind of nice if they put something into a song like that.
Right.
But if it's from start to finish, a million notes per second, it kind of loses me. Right.
And the only reason this is really metal is it's like I said, it's not really metal in some ways. The guitars might be detuned to D, and the lead singer has kind of a voice that skews metal, but it doesn't feel like it's heavy to me, really at that heavy at all. So you would like it. Right. Okay.
All right. My third choice is The Gathering, How to Measure a Planet.
Nice.
This is another one that I got at band that I got into at the same time as Ariane, because obviously Ariane first, because finding out that Anik had a band, and I was like, I gotta look into that, and it's so weird that in the mid '90s I heard of the band, and I never got into it, and then all of a sudden and it's just amazing that before her they were more a death metal band, and then she came in, and the first 2 albums, Dandelion and Nighttime Birds, were more on the they had like a Pink Floyd vibe that a little bit, And then they just switched gears to this one, which is a little more on the alternative side, and and it's a double disc,
Yeah.
and it just ends off with this 25-minute epic, which it's not towards the latter half of the 25 minutes, it starts getting into some weird ambient stuff going on, but I had heard, and actually more read, that the type of music that they started getting into, they were kind of categorizing it as trip hop,
Okay.
where it had the beat, it had that kind of beats going on, but with more of a guitar edge to it. And I mean, her voice is amazing. I mean,
Right.
she could sing metal, anything, even if it's just stripped down to her doing in a guitar, it's just such a pleasant voice to listen to.
Right. Well, you probably found out about her because she was guesting on Ariana album.
Yeah, yeah,
And if I'm Gerstenbergen, I believe is who it was at that time.
yeah.
Annika, yeah, and I've spoken to her twice, and she seems like just like such a great person, and she really was pivotal in the reforming of that band in the era that we probably like it the best, which is right in there. Sleepy Buildings would be one I could think of that I really liked, and a live album that I could think of off the top of my head.
Right.
So though, yeah, I love The Gathering. I don't think I've ever seen them live. But definitely a great album. I do like that one. Didn't make my list though. Let's see. So I guess I'll go to another one, and my third one, not in any particular order, as I said. I'm going to go with Arena the Visitor. I wouldn't be surprised if it's on your list or not. It's just the quintessential Arena album, The Visitor. There's a couple. That was an era. I'm look up right now. Arena, who they had, what albums they had in that era. Contagion, Immortal, Pepper's Ghost, and this one, The Visitor. Right. I just thought were amazing. They redid The Visitor, and they just toured The Visitor. I think a 25th anniversary of it at Night at the Prague. I saw it, and they toured it all over. So it's a huge album for them, and one that Clive Nolan's told me personally that just seems to be the one that everybody seems to get around. And of course, I love Arena. I've flown across seen him in Europe. I've flown him to my house to play here at the house. So I love Arena, and I love the guys just as much. People that maybe might not like John Mitchell personally, I get that. But once you're kind of in his orbit, then it's really great to know him. I'll give you a little story. See, it was just two of us, and sure. we're not running too slow. John Mitchell, when Arena came to play my house, he didn't say anything to me for 4 or 5 hours. We're in the dining room, just hanging out. I figure he's just jet lagged a little bit. I got a very limp handshake from him at the airport. Didn't say anything to me. And then all of a sudden, after 4 or 5 hours, he goes, "All right, what bands do you hate?" Is the first thing he asked me. So of course I tell him it bites. I hate It Bites. And he's like, "Okay, all right. Well, it's not really prog. He's in the band. Okay, so people are listening. Right. I ripped on his band. So, and then we had a few more, which I won't say on this thing. And so we had all of a sudden we were kindred spirits, and now we get along very well. But he's definitely a bit like not approachable, and he has this kind of wall about him, but he's fine guy once you get to know him. I just want to let everybody know. And Kylie, the bass player, is great. At the time, I haven't met. I have met him in a different aspect, but the lead singer that was then, and I can't even think of his name now, is great. And we did acoustic, so no drummer. And Clive is a great guy as well, and just a lot of fun to hang out with. All of them, just great people.
Yeah, I kind of I vaguely, I think I kind of met him once, and it was at one of the Los Angeles Prog Fests. I want to say that Arena played, and but I can't remember 100% because I know Clive was there, so I guess it must have been Arena. And like you said, he kind of came off cold. Now, if I stuck around a little longer, probably it would have had the same experience as you. But
Right.
like, but it was pretty cool. It's kind of nice to meet these people and kind of get, like you said, in their orbit.
Yeah. Yeah, well, they're good guys, and they had some problems with a promoter in Milwaukee, and I introduced them to that. Well, they were in Chicago. I introduced them to the guy they had a problem with in Milwaukee when the show got canceled, and they were able to bury the hatchet. I saw them when they could have been at their worst, and they were all great, and everybody was friends. So it was really nice to see. Yeah.
All right, I'm going to kind of like it's a remake.
Okay.
It's IQ 7 stories into 98.
Ah, interesting.
They basically just redid their 7 stories into, the original one that came before Tales from the Lush Attic.
Mhm.
I think that album was more of a collection of songs rather than an album proper, because they have quite different sounds going on. I like how they remade it and kind of remixed it, because the older album, it's very muddy, and and they just basically redid it. It has the weird thing is the song "Barbell Is In," that one originally was like a reggae. They kind of did it slightly different than a reggae song.
Right.
And but it has all the great songs, Intelligence Quotient, and It All Stops Here,
Right.
and Fascination. I've been into this band since '93 when they played at the Prog Fest, and I knew nothing of them before that.
Right.
And a friend of mine, I was talking to him about it, and he said he's been a fan of theirs since the '80s, since like '83, '84, and then when he saw that IQ was playing, he goes, he didn't know that Peter Nichols was back in the band at that time.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So, because he still thought it was Paul Manel was in the band.
Right.
But this is a nice thing if you could track it down. I'm not sure if it's still in print or not. This particular one is a promo copy, so I couldn't tell you. But if you're into IQ, this is kind of like, I want to say, more of a historical kind of an album, especially if you listen to the first disc.
What's this one called again? I'm not familiar with it.
It's called 7 Stories into 98.
Okay. All right. Yeah. 7 Stories into 98.
And the original one was called 7 Stories into 8.
Gotcha.
So they just kind of did a play on the year.
Gotcha. Yeah, which is the original demo cassette of '82. Yeah. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, they just polished it up, with that current lineup that they had, with John Jowett in the band. That's a good one.
Yeah, that was okay. Yeah. That's got Martin Orford and Nichols and Holmes and Cook. Okay, gotcha. Great, that's cool. I think I don't know if I don't know that one would have made my list, but definitely like that. IQ is one of my favorite bands, just hands down. Luckily they've come to America enough that I've been able to see them without having to go get them. So I've seen them at Rostas a couple of times. How about 3RP?
I think I know 3RP. Yeah, I was there.
Yeah, that was the Frequency tour.
I took my girlfriend to that, and she's not into the prog
Yeah.
music, and I
Right.
took her there, and she loved the music.
Yeah.
She loved the, you know, all the bands there that were playing. You know, she
Yeah.
really enjoyed. I think the one that she enjoyed the most was that Persephone's Dream.
Yeah.
You know, that was the one
I
she
got
enjoyed the most.
they had an auction. I won their drum head. They had a painted drum head because one of their members was a painter. So
Oh yes,
I really
Peter.
enjoyed. Yeah, I really enjoyed that set and the Fido set. And who else was there? King's X and but I went there for Fido to tell you the truth. That was the first time I saw
Right.
Fido live. And IQ.
Yeah. I liked how at that hotel in the lobby section, everybody was there mingling, and it was not like rock star and audience. It was like
yeah.
people, you know. And I think that's what the I mean, at least for the American festivals, it feels like that was the vibe that I got from all of the ones that I've been to.
Right.
Prague Fest, Baja Prague,
hmm
Cal Prague,
Yeah, Cal
uh,
Prague.
3RP, Rossfest, the ones
Right.
that I went to.
Yeah, it's always been that way. I think it's not too crazy over here with it's not like they're inundated with fans. So they're able to talk to anybody one-on-one and not have too much of a
Right.
problem. Yeah. So I think so that was your fourth one, right? So it's my turn
Yeah.
for four. Okay. So here's one off the reservation. Howard Jones's People, of all things. I went to a place called the Park West here in Chicago, and I went there on a lark because I like his radio friendly stuff, and I like the stuff that was not as radio friendly. Hoping to play that, and he was touring this thing called People, which I didn't know was out, and it was actually featuring a 3-piece that he's with today. It was Nick Beggs and I can't remember the guitar player. No, that's frustrating. But so and I was completely blown away by the album. All the new stuff was great. And let me look at my list here of songs from that. If I go to back to 98, there was some great tracks on here. You're the Buddha. There's a version of Everything live on there. Let the People Have Say If You Love. Not One of the Lonely Night is a beautiful ending track as well. And Belinda Carlisle helped him with one song, and it's kind of interesting and retro, the Bangles, and I really enjoy that song as well. And he had these great musicians around him, and it was just this beautiful post-pop era for Howard. And when I went back and the reason I went is because I got the live Acoustic America show, and I got to hear how great his songs were without all of the electro pop stuff around it, just acoustic piano and some accompaniment. And these songs, even though they're huge hits, were even better as an acoustic only. And you can really see his love of Donald Fagen in this album and in the acoustic album. So he even in part 2 of a song, Donald Fagen had a song called New Frontier, where the people were we ruined Earth, we're on the new frontier. He continued the story with a song called I don't really know if I can come up with a name with a microphone in front of me, but it was another great triumph for Howard Jones. And if you only heard his 80s stuff, it's worth listening to his stuff after.
Yeah, I just know his 80s stuff, that they played in heavy rotation on MTV.
Right. Yeah, the one with the pickle factory, which is like called New Song, I believe. And of course, things can only get better, and all these huge hits he had. But him Hyperactive is Thomas Dolby, and that's another person that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I got those two mixed
Yeah,
up.
yeah, it's easily done. but yeah, there's some great stuff there from Howard. He's still touring, I would highly recommend his shows.
Okay, my final one, I'm kind of going into the season that we're coming up here, and
Oh, okay.
mostly celebrated here in the United States. Morte Macabre,
Nice.
Symphonic Holocaust.
Okay.
This, along with the IQ1, were the only ones that I actually purchased in 19.
Okay.
I got this later on in the year. A friend of mine told me, he said, "Hey, you know, the guys from Anecdote and Landberg are doing something together, and it's horror related." And I go, "Oh, sign me up!"
Yeah, nice.
and I eventually, I can't tell you all the different songs where they're from, but I've heard them in just about every Italian horror movie that I've seen that was from the 70s and 80s. And then they ended off with an original Symphonic Holocaust, which
Right.
I think there's a lot of the fans of this album that would love it if they did a second one, because there's so much more great horror soundtrack music out there that can be covered by a prog band. I mean, it's just, I mean, obviously you have the Giants and that Goblin. I mean,
right.
I mean, those guys, you know, just about every Dario Argento movie that's out there, you know, it's got a Goblin soundtrack. And
that's for sure.
And the odd thing about that, you know, because we're talking about the time of the year, it's like when I first saw that movie Suspiria and I heard that soundtrack, that was such a haunting one, and I think that's a great one to listen to this time of the year, because it really gets you into the mood of the season. I mean, there's a ton of other stuff out there too. I mean, anywhere from the obvious, you know, Halloween theme to the Tubular Bells, you know, all those ones that kind of get you in there. But there's a lot of this, and this one is good. I'm not sure if this is still in print or not, but if it is, you know, I get it. Maybe too late to get it for this Halloween season, but you know, have it on hand for the next year, you know, because it's really good. I mean, it kind of gets you in the mood.
Yeah. Well, it is 12th on Prague Archives for the year. I did notice it was on my my short list. Yeah, it's a 4. It gets a 4 rating, which is pretty darn good for that genre. I will tell you that heavy prog and extreme technical prog, that's the group of people that's the most difficult to satisfy. So when you see something like a heavy prog or extreme, which I don't particularly like tech extreme prog metal, when you see those are up there and you like that, I think that's very good for them, because it's a tough crowd.
Right.
Yeah. So that one I haven't heard of. I'm gonna have to spin that one and check it out, because that seems amazing. And my last one is right below it on the list. At 13 comes in Chroma Key, Dead Air for Radios. This was like, when I heard this, I don't know who told me about it. I think because some knew I liked Shadow Gallery, Dream Theater. It's like, oh, you gotta check out Chroma Key. It's their original keyboard player, Kevin Moore. And I checked it out. I was like, this is amazing. It was exactly like what I liked about Porcupine Tree at the time, because it was before In Absentia. And it has these great like samples of like operators and things that you would have heard on a Porcupine Tree album of the time. And this album has a bunch of songs in there. Let me make sure I get them right. Let me see if I see it on my list here. It has Even the Waves and SOS are two of my favorites on there, as well as Colorblind, America the Video, and On the Page. Just 5 great tracks right off the top of my head here. Not off the top of my head. I did look it up, but it's just a great melodic album. You just want to groove to it. You definitely want to kind of do a slow head bop to this album.
Right.
It's got some of my favorite artists in there in retrospect, because I didn't know Joey Vera that well at the time. And then he came out with, it's going to be all full circle here. So he came out with, obviously, Joey Vera was in, what was he in? That was really popular. Was he in Rainbow or something like that? Help me out here. Joey Vera.
Joey Vera, that's the bass player, right?
Yes, Joey Vera.
Okay, he was in
it was an Armored Saint. Fates Warning, Armored Saint. Right. And his favorite thing he did was a solo project called A Chinese Fire Drill. And that's a great album up and down as well. And he is on this album. Also, a guy named Mark Zonder is in this album. Another guy from those bands, as well as he's in, and here's where it comes full circle. He worked with, he has something called Zonder Wernkamp, or ZW, another great album from Gary Wernkamp from Shadow Gallery, which we talked about earlier, and Zonder, the drummer. That's another, and so just a star-studded group. I forgot who the guitar player is, but he was not Jason Anderson. I don't know him from anything, but it's a great album, and there's a Japanese edition with 2 extra songs, so keep a lookout for that. It has a special version of On the Page on there, and the title track as well, called Chroma Key. Or not a title track, but what do you call a track that's named after the band and not after the album? So
right.
So anyhow,
a friend of mine was into them, because isn't that kind of a little more on the, I want to say, ambient-ish side?
It certainly
the keyboards.
It is. I mean, it's very dreamy keyboards, but because there's a story and the lyrics are so present, I have trouble calling it ambient, because when I think about ambient, sometimes I think about instrumental only. So if ambient isn't a term you use for something that's not, if ambient is a term you use for something that's not instrumental, I would definitely say it's ambient for sure, because it's like it's almost like stoner rock or something like that, just like so mellow, like get in your beanbag type of music, but it's definitely it's a great album. And when I didn't have much prog to listen to in 1993 or 4, when I started listening to prog, this was in heavy rotation for me.
Right. Yeah. And my friend, he's really into anything that is keyboard oriented or keyboard based,
Right.
And he's turned me on to quite a few different stuff. I mean, he always is constant email telling me, do you have this? If not, get it. He kind of keeps it short and sweet. It's like,
right. Well, I'm surprised. Go ahead.
And he pretty much, like, I want to say 95% of the time he's on the head with that,
Right. Well, they had. I'm surprised that that Dream Theater survived him leaving the writing team, to tell you the truth, because this album and the next album called what was it called? You Go Now, are great albums. And of course, he was part of Images and Words and Awake, right? And also he was a writer in OSI, Office of Strategic Influence, and he wrote and Blood. So he was on 2 albums with them. So he was on fire for me, because OSI was great, and actually Stephen Wilson is on a song called, I can't remember if it's Hello Helicopter or Shut Down or something like that. So that was just just a great. I thought that this guy was a genius back then, and then he kind of just disappeared. I think he did. I think he did a Patreon type thing back before Patreon existed, where you could get a song a month from him, but he never
Right.
kind of came out of that and did something since Graveyard Mountain Home, which was more of an experimental album, wasn't meant to be for fans of his earlier work per se. So,
Right.
so it was. He's great, and then, but like I said, some of my favorite Dream Theater albums were after him. So with Scenes of a Memory and 6 Degrees, so they survived it fine.
Yeah, yeah, I liked his work. His keyboard work on Dream Theater. That was good stuff there.
Yeah.
I don't. That's probably a discussion for another day. How when band members leave, how the shift in the way the music goes. It just sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not so good. I don't think I've ever experienced a band that when they changed members went, really bad.
Yeah. I can't think of anything. I could definitely think of like, okay, well, I'm not personally going to buy any of their albums anymore, but
Right.
but but never like, it's like they have enough internal fortitude to say, okay, if something that they tried didn't work, they just don't come out with it, at all. They don't even release it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this was fun doing a kind of a scaled down one.
Yeah. And don't let me and there was a Genesis live album, right, that came out that year, Archives 1, I believe.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Okay.
And it didn't make my list because I didn't do any live albums, as so just to let you know that I didn't use that one, even though I wanted to, because that turned my wife into a Genesis fan for the whole catalog. And that's just for Phil Collins or Peter Gabriel era. So that was great about that.
Right. Yeah. That's kind of cool. That might be for next year. We could do a discussion favorite live albums, because because I watch a lot of people's posts on their favorite live albums, and it's always been on the back of my mind of a cool show to do. But I think I'm gonna do one of those in between. I'll call them the decades and half decades.
Oh yeah. Makes sense. Are we gonna do a 2023 one sometime in 2024?
Well, actually, we're going to do in December 2003.
2003. Okay.
Yeah, we're gonna talk about that, and that's December 2nd.
Okay. I'm already looking at my list now. There's some Arena there. There's some Fido in there. There's some OSI, Mars Volta, Galahad. That's a big year. Look at this.
Yeah, I know. I was looking at that list earlier. I was like going, okay. I think as we get more into the modern, there's, we have, at least for people such as ourselves that like this more of the more melodic kind of stuff,
Right. Yep.
It's perfect for us. And, but, yeah. And yeah, it's for December 2nd. I was just looking at the calendar.
Okay.
So, that's going to be cool. We're going to get into the new century.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
And, it'd be kind of interesting to see, because a lot of those are going to be albums that we probably bought on release date or release year.
Yeah, that's right in the fringe for me.
Yeah, probably for you, it sounds like that was like your big album my year, possibly.
Yeah, that was when I started doing the podcast in 2002, and I had just gone to see Shaming of the True with Nick DiVirgilio at Prague West in California.
Yes, I remember that.
And that was and I got to meet a bunch of people there that I'm friends with still to today. So that's a great memory of the 2002 when Ray and I really started getting into progressive rock.
You probably Demonia.
Oh yeah, Demonia, sure.
Yeah, that I didn't go because at that time I had some feet issues and I was held up, and
Right.
a friend of mine bought me that. And he
Nice.
said, "Here, and he said at least you can enjoy one of the bands live, in the
Right.
comfort of your own home."
Right.
Uh,
That's
but
great.
yeah. So, well, thank you again.
Sure.
I appreciate that you've been coming on for the past few of these. I
Oh,
think
yeah.
at least 3 or 4, I believe. So
Yeah, I'm retired, so I will be here for you. Okay, and the only time I could, if I can't make it, it's because I had to do 7 European shows of Unitopia, so I was out of the country for a long time. But besides that, I'm here.
Okay, sounds great.
Cool.
So, everybody, December 2nd,
Okay.
2003.
All right, I will be here.
All right. Well, thanks again, Mark.
Sure. I'll catch you soon.